Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Alliance's Performance Shop, Lone Star, Mopars.com. Memorial Day weekend, Saturday. It's a cool 91 outside, so it's probably like 95 or 6 in here. No air. Trying to get a video cranked out without the fan, but what we've got will even make it hotter because we have got text message right on cue, but we've got an order, multiple text messages right on cue. An order from DRPD, a low battery light already. This one's going to have some PB Swiss, and it's going to have some Koken. So let's jump in right now. DRPD, if you're on a certain mailing list, which anyone has access to, you knew about the sale about a day early before everybody else. So really good deal, 15% off, and anything, I believe, and 20% off orders over 300, so kind of pick your poison. But what we did, this one, we only got the 15%er, so all these prices will currently be listed, and just imagine 15% off on top of that. But we'll turn around, and we got this. PB Swiss PB8215A. This isn't necessarily a mistake, because it's still functional, will work for me, but it's not quite what I was hoping to do. And, it's right here, or it could be. You're going to see two items. One of the two items should be different, and it's not a DRPD thing, it's a me thing, so full responsibility there on my end. But if you think, oh hey, you know, this looks like that, conveniently, last weekend I released the DRPD haul from long ago, where we'd use this to pair with like a Stahlwille Ratchet type of a thing, right? Not this exact handle, but a similar sized one. This thing is going to run you, let's see here, 615 looks like what I'm looking at. And if you think, yeah, that does look familiar, what's the catch? Well, this is the catch. And this right here is the exact same handle, same form factor, same everything, minus the red and yellow. This is ESD. I thought this, if you're not familiar or you forgot, it's the interchangeable blade. So this essentially takes an ESD deal, allows me to couple it with this, and then we've got quarter drive available for tiny electronic based nuts and fasteners, and it's kind of a win at the price point, plus it just looks super cool. This is the exact same thing, and you think, okay, well hey, you know, no worries, you keep that as your dedicated nut driver and use this with the blades. Well, I'm not like heavily invested in interchangeable blades from PB Swiss, and sadly I don't have another quarter drive to, not that you'd have to divide them up, but you could, or if you wanted, you know, one at home, one at work type of a thing. This isn't that. What happened is, when I placed that order long ago, keep in mind that was long ago at this point in time, the 3/8 stuff was out of stock. By 3/8 stuff, I mean a 3/8 interchangeable blade. And when that video dropped, I want to say it was Boosted, left a comment, and he was like, yeah, I did the same thing, I've got a quarter and 3/8, and I was like, man, I forgot to get the 3/8. So, in a hurry, late at night, I came in, placed my order to cash in on the discount before things went away, particularly one item that you're going to see next, and we grabbed PB 225.V 3/8. And if you're thinking like, oh, 3/8, okay, well, you know, I'm not a rocket scientist, but it must be the 3/8 drive. What's the problem? This is a problem. And you think, oh no, it's too stubby. You know, I see the dilemma there. No, this has another issue, which if you look at the OD on that and the ID here, these things are not compatible. Right? A better visual would actually be here, right? And you're thinking, well, yeah, 3/8. Oh, I see what he means. So yeah, this is 100% on me, but I thought, I wasn't planning on using that handle. I thought I was buying something similar to this. Now this is what you can easily squeeze a lot of ratchets into. It is the 215, but there's a 5 in front of it. And you're thinking like, 5? What's the deal there? Well, that bigger diameter is designed for insulated blades. So it's essentially the same thing, just a bigger ID, and it's designed to hold insulated blades. You kind of hopefully follow suit here. Here's the deal. This, you can tell, it's like not designed for it, but the farther I press this thing in, at this point in time, it's pretty solid. I had this thing, if you really pay attention, you'll see some teeth marks on two sides. You think, that's not usual PB Swiss quality. Yeah, that was me. I shoved this thing all the way in, making it an ultra stubby 3/8, and then I had to use these to extract it. It was that tight of a fit, so You can technically use this handle with this. It is not intended to be used that way. It's not going to catch and release like anything you're familiar with in the 215 line. The problem I've got, and I'm going to try to peel this phone out of my sweaty pants. We have the 225, right? So 215 series, 215 blade, that's a 5215 insulated. And you're thinking like, well, no big deal. Just turn around and order this as a 225. All I can find, and again, I so wish, this is why I'm old school and get catalogs, right? Some people's websites are junk. Some of them are difficult to navigate. Some of the part systems don't really make sense to me. Others I can like decipher instantaneously. This is the only thing I can find, all right, that's the 225. Outside of other blades, I do have a nice assortment of blades, which this isn't a huge problem because this is articulated, so imagine that like swinging across the horizon 180 degrees. Super cool. The thing is, it's also spendy. That's like just shy of $50. It also looks to be acetate. Not that that's bad, but if I had to pick, I would definitely be a Swiss grip person. I don't know that I want to shell out for that, to be honest. It would be super cool. I'm not going to lie. If the channel was huge, you know, we just had like disposable income here, yeah, that's a no-brainer, but, you know, that's not the case. And this technically, although not intended, sort of saved my bacon on this one. And, it's relatively adjustable. I can obviously seat this all the way. At this point, I think I can still manually get her out. So essentially, I'd say right about there is where okay, that's gonna spin. The deeper you go, that'll still spin. I don't think you'd have issues till you're tightening anything. So definitely not ideal, but it's gonna save me $50 and I've got like an inch that we can play with. So I think I'm gonna call it a win, kind of a salvageable win, not what I intended to win, but we still managed, right? I guess the thing I need to do is either dedicate this handle for something nefarious, pick up another quarter drive blade, or possibly just like a book of blades if there's ever a big sale. But again, that's not anything we have to do. I'm not like super invested, and I'd kind of prefer not to be, right? Yeah. Screwdriver is one thing we're not lacking, at least in, you know, my usual drive sizes. So maybe we'll do something with that. Maybe we won't. Maybe something changes there. But as best I can do, I might send an email. I'll check PB Swiss first, and then I'll maybe email Mike and say, hey, you know, is the 225 interchangeable blades, do they only work with that acetate swivel head guy? And if that's the case, we'll put that on a wish list, wait for a sale, call it good after that. So up next, we've got an item. We're moving into the Koken portion of the tool haul, and this was $115.90, by far the most expensive thing. And you think, oh, $115.90, what is this, some Ratchet on sale? They did have a Koken Ratchet sale in addition to these discounted prices. This is one of the things that has completely evaded me every single time I place an order at DRPD. This is something that was just gone, out of stock, right? It is Koken's RS 3305 M/12. Now again, we do this every time. /12 is going to tell us 12 pieces. The M is going to tell us metric. And if you know anything about the RS, it's going to be a railed set. I guess I should show it to you before I open it. And some of you might know the 3305. If you don't, you do now. If that looks like a deep socket and 3/8 drive, you're 100% correct. And now you know it's 12 point. All this time, I have rocked shallow and semi-deep, but never deep. Now, granted, there's times it's probably in stock, but, you know, I'm thrifty. I buy on sales, and for whatever reason, this and that, like some of the KTC Roto heads, are just really hard to ever have things line up perfectly, right? So this is a big deal, though. Number one, the price point for a 12-piece. This is 8 to 19 with no skips. I know a lot of times with Koken, especially their higher-end stuff, you might have 8, 10, 13, you know, I'm trying to think what sizes they do. Sometimes they have some oddballs mixed in there, but this one's complete. This is like the American marketplace desirable tactic of 8 to 19, 16's there, 18's there. You got your 11, you got your 12. Everything you could ever want is here. They're beautifully done. Again, I don't know how many times I need to cover Koken sockets. Shouldn't have gone walking. In addition to being 90 degrees outside, it's like 50-mile-an-hour wind. I had the bright idea, I was like, oh, I'm going to catch some sun before I lock myself up in the shop. And yeah, it very, very dusty here. So my apologies. Made it a little ways. But this is actually going to pair with these guys that have just been chilling, waiting for me to have time to complete the entire Trinity, and this is it. So right here, these rails actually hold up pretty well. I've somehow never put these on anything else, but it's just 3/8 shallow, semi-deep, and deep. We're gonna come in, let's just go with the 10 for everybody's convenience. We'll rip off the semi-deeps, we'll rip off the deep. I'm not going to lie, I largely use the semi-deeps because I have them, and for most of my life I've never had semi-deep sockets, so there's that. But this is kind of what you're working with. Something that I think would be a great strategy for somebody, go entirely semi-deep, yes, but with Koken and their metric stuff, if you're willing to pay the money for their Z-Series, and I'm talking like Zeal dedicated Z-Series stuff, you can get their like super shallows, right? Which would make this guy look like ginormous. Not ginormous, but you know, maybe here. They're like, think of Astro's nano sockets done by Koken, if you will. That, coupled with the semi-deep, I think that, you know, and using the semi-deep as like your bread and butter, I kind of wonder if you couldn't get by with that. And then if they had an extra deep or something, that'd be like a killer set. Super shallow, semi-deep for regular use, and then extra deep for weird stuff, right? Because it is, you always think, yeah, let's eliminate the deep and save some money. Well, there's times you kind of have to have a deep socket, and that's kind of why there's sizes. But this is your size range, though, just to give you a quick visual. Again, deep, semi, and shallow. And this little deep set is the ones that had evaded us all this time. And what we're going to do now, as I try to keep my nose from running down onto the camera, we've got one more item, and this is the one I'm excited about. I don't think I covered at the start of this video, but the reason I'm so happy, the reason this is coming right out of the box, is this last item. This was an order I placed again the first night. I wasn't expecting to get this until Tuesday, and it was the post office of all places that delivered this thing today. Made me super happy because of this item. It's not necessarily the item itself, but something with the item. This is less than half the price of what we just showcased in the socket set, but it's 1/2-inch drive. You're like, what? Okay, must be some spontaneous socket set of some small size or something. Koken's part number 4768J-450. Some of you are like, dash 450, I wonder if that's the length. Well, 5470 is the price, and if you thought 450 might be the length, you'd be 100% correct. And some of you are like, okay, wait, did you get like a really cheap Koken Ratchet? Like, what could this possibly be? This is something I have never showcased on the channel because I've never had it. And I'm going to come in and you're like, oh, that's that handle on Koken. So this isn't Z-Series. Maybe that's why it was cheap. Must be like some old 36 tooth thing, right? Not quite. If I take you to the other side of the bag, it's a breaker bar. Never had a Koken breaker bar. And you're thinking like, why would you get a Koken breaker bar? Well, to pair with all the Koken frickin' sockets that we've accumulated. That's why. And, cannot lie as I turn around looking for scissors. Oh, geez. This serves a bigger purpose for me. One of my most sought-after Koken items is a ratchet, and it is kind of an old school. This is not 36 tooth, not 72. It's 45 tooth, and it is their Roto head. That's something that DRPD currently doesn't have. I've asked if they would like get one or plan to get them in type of a thing. And with the Roto heads, you have 3 handle choices. Every Koken ratchet you've seen me bring in has either been bare metal handle like traditional, which that was a little stubby guy that we kind of got on accident, or it's been the Z-Series with the super thin, super compact black handle. That's your only option. There's no bare metal or duration. That's how they are. Take it or leave it. And for the most part, they're fine. I'm kind of picky with handles if we had to speak like in terms of perfect scenario for me. With the Roto heads, you have a bare metal handle. You do not have the comfort grip of the Zeal like that you're accustomed to seeing on the products I brought in. You've got this, and you've got a knurled handle. Okay, I nearly brought in a 1/2-inch padded, a 3/8 knurled, and then I was debating quarter. I don't think quarter has a padded handle, but I thought, I want to make sure I like the breaker bars first, right? And they do have Z series breaker bars, which makes a lot of sense stylistically to match everything else you've got. It's like a holy terror out there. But this is the big ticket, because I've only seen this online, and it kind of looked like big and bulky, and then kind of dipped in and teardropped out type of a thing. With a Roto, I want to be able to, yes, it's great in leverage, to have something padded and comfortable, but I want to be able to spin. And I didn't know if this was going to be good to spin. And I do think it's spinnable, but I don't think I would want it. Now, back here, it's very nice. Granted, this is a breaker bar, and it's not centered, so yeah, it's a little cumbersome. Overall, I think this is actually kind of a nice handle. It's black and gray, obviously. That's the only color setup you can get. And as with almost every handle you ever see me grab, it's like that short. Again, in a perfect world, I'd have a handle up to about here, maybe even with a thumb rest incorporated. It's just barely. It's very, very close. Much closer than if we had a Z series here. Again, a money grew on trees, I would do that for you. We'd buy the same thing with the Z handle, compare it, and then we'd like give one of them away. And I'm weird, and sometimes I would take this over the more expensive tool because I would like the way it feels better. But like I said, if you want to get to that point, spread the word on the channel, subscribe, all that stuff. But this is kind of a nice little breaker bar. The 450, that is a length I don't have. All my breaker bars are 1/2-inch, old school American, knurled handles, which I love, but they're shorter. That's the real downside. That's why I've gone in and I bought the Pittsburgh 25-inch. Pittsburgh 25 is awesome, but it's cumbersome. You can't use it in every situation because you simply do not have space for 2 feet hanging off the back end of a socket, right? So the only other like modern 1/2-inch breaker bar I own, I'm talking like anything beyond probably production date of 1970, is the Stahlwille. And the Stahlwille is stupid stiff, but it's super robust too. But it's just a smidge shorter than the Koken. I mean, literally, I've got these handles lined up with my index finger. Hopefully you can see that over here. And then right here, the anvil on the Stahlwille comes up basically to the yoke. Where this Y is out, in yoke form or a field goal setup, that's where this stops. So these are very, very close. This guy right here, man, I've not ballasted him. I think I've only used it like 6 or so times, but she's stiff. Okay, this is just a joint with a fastener. I mean, look how beefy that sucker is. This one's going to be a little bit more compact, and there's also something I personally kind of dig on breaker bars. Number one, she's smooth. Number two, you see that little hole right there? Looks like the top end of a bomb missing its fuse. When we cycle this over, and we cycle that, it's able to catch, I think, yeah, see this groove right here? You're like, there's no hole on this side. There's no hole on that side. What wizardry is going on? This is designed to catch the little ball detent right here in the base. If you look at it in the right light, let me zoom in again. I'm fighting a battery light here. My apologies. Right down there, you see sticking up in between the gap of the black and the chrome. There's that little thing. Yeah, that lines up right there. You can see it catch into place, sort of lock. Right here, you're like, how did that lock? There is clearly no hole like that on these sides. It's this ring that you see right there. So it's a very nice setup. This is super smooth. What is 450 millimeters in old school terms here? Well, let's go end to end here with the Black Widow for your viewing convenience. I'm gonna call it just about 17 3/4. That's what I'll go with there. Could be just a smidge shy of that. Metric wasn't designed to interchange beautifully with SAE measurements, but this is pretty nice, and it is going to go into the cart, which is almost a Koken cart at this point in time. And the big thing here, I do actually, especially now, this is my first time, this is, okay, again, gloved hand with a bad thumb, it feels good there. This has a really nice texture. Thank goodness we switched to this hand. So this right here is a hard plastic, the gray. So that's kind of your base end. It's got a bit of a texture too. Now you probably have seen these little swivel recesses. Don't know why I call that swivel, but sort of just like a milled out keyway looking thing. That obviously is going to give extra grip, but the grip I wouldn't be concerned with because this texture is nice. So right there, yeah, it's comfortable, but it's kind of a little, I don't want to say awkward, but it's not quite what I would have done. Keep in mind, I'm usually going to be reefing like this, so it's kind of a moot point. But it almost seems like you would want the handle rotated. And the reason I say that is, like, it's got a very unique profile. It's more oval than round. And if I spin this around, this will look flat. This side bulbs, obviously, again, if we spin it, flat and bulb. And then this side kind of recesses. If you look at the Koken nameplate here, this is where the drive end is, right? So when I grab this, I want to hold it like this, right? Or kind of, I assume, these recesses, they'd want your fingers. Well, here's the deal. I don't know. I kind of feel like I need the handle swiveled, 90 degrees to be the most ergonomical. Maybe this will work. Again, it's probably better if I size it this way. I think it'll be fine like this, but it is very interesting because, again, I'm a guy coming off of old school knurling or kind of like a more traditionally round. This is kind of a unique sculpt. It's something, if you're looking at older Koken ratchets, if you're looking at breaker bars, I would not go in and buy a full set. I would get one, maybe the cheapest, maybe the one you need the most. If you got something down or you need a project or certain length that's going to be perfect, try this handle out. Or if you're looking for the knurling and you want to try it out, do the same thing. If you're unhappy, move on. But this was brought in, again, primarily, not gonna lie, as a cheap way for me to kind of add a breaker bar length we didn't have, especially for the cart, and two, get a good feel for this handle, which I like the handle. I think it would honestly work on the Roto. Especially when you're down here. When you get to about this point and it starts to bulb out, like here where it's sort of like traditional screwdriver, and then she starts to get curvaceous, right? That's where back here, this would spin excellent. Again, a breaker bar is sort of awkward, especially this length. If this was like a 10-inch, it would be significantly more impressive in video form. But when you come up here, if like you're somebody that's used to doing this with your Roto, because it's smooth like this shaft, right? This is a little just not ideal, right? It's definitely doable, and I say that because the Gedore breaker bar I took to work, I'm also someone that uses a breaker bar as a spinner, right? Especially, I mean, just head on like this. I'll run stuff in, and then I get over and boom, put the, put the strength in it to tighten her down. It's a typical Gedore handle, right? So it's more of like a rectangular oval, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is you think, oh, that's going to be cumbersome to spin. Not near as smooth as if we say had this as the handle, but the catch is it actually is not terrible, especially once you kind of adjust to it. You just sort of get your spin cycle set up. I've been pleasantly surprised there. The bottom line, I think this is a killer breaker bar. I dig this handle. I don't know that I would want this on the Roto. Again, I wish the Rotos were a little cheaper, or I was like some filthy rich YouTube person, because then we just get all three Rotos and the problem would be solved. Right? The heartbreaking thing about looking ahead to a case or a Koken Roto head, they only have 3/8. Super buzzkill. I'd love to see them like update it to Zeal, go 72 tooth, add other drive sizes. I guess quarter would make more sense. I'm somebody that actually uses the 1/2 inch. I'm a Roto person. There's Roto people, and there's people that just haven't experienced a Roto, and then there's a small sect of people that just despise them for some reason. But all in all, for $54, this is actually a sweet breaker bar. I don't have any issues with the strength of it. Obviously, compared to this Stahlwille, I mean, like, this is beefcakes territory. This is perfectly strong and it's going to be a bit slimmer, right? So there could be a situation where you might get in with this that you don't with the Stahlwille. Usually with a breaker bar, that's not an issue, but this feels pretty dadgum good as well. It's just a pin through there. It's not like a fastener like the Stahlwille. So no adjustability here in terms of the tension, but realistically with that ball detent, this is buttery smooth. I love it. And you're probably screaming, show us a socket, fool. How does it fit? Well, here you go. Let's turn this guy up. What do we have here? We got a 1/2 inch drive, obviously 1 1/8. So picture your big bad 3/4 hardware there. You just broke it free, you know, maybe an impact, you run out after work. Run this thing in with your breaker bar, swivel over, go to town, tighten it down, right? Come back in, try to torque it if you can fit the torque wrench. And, this is great. The ball detent here, this is the biggest SAE 1/2 inch drive I've got. Putting a lot of force in there. It's shaking the snot out of my nose, but it's not moving the socket to this position. So the ball detent system's working great. I gotta tell you, I am impressed by this breaker bar. So I actually love the handle too. Again, slightly, we're talking like a thumb pad higher. That's all I would want. It's unique. I do kind of wonder, I almost wish you could tweak this, right? You know, there's a little set screw and lock nut system, and you're like, oh, hey, I do like it better this way. Catch is, you're like, well, you can hold the breaker bar like that, idiot. Yeah, I totally can, but there's not much, you know, I'm not going to be able to come in and, you know, apply the torque I would. But hopefully you see that profile there again. The feel of this is fantastic. And again, if you hate Koken Zeal's kind of dainty, slim, compact, I totally get why they do it. But this, and I will tell you also, there's old 36 tooth mechanisms, fantastic ratchets as well. If you want to try their grips like this, breaker bar or an older ratchet, you might very well like it better than their Z series stuff. But just kind of depends on the application. Your personal preference is all totally subjective. All in all, though, this is a win because this is a fantastic price for a quality 1/2 inch breaker bar. Again, that's a beefcake. My old American stuff, I don't know that it's as thick as the Stahlwille. I don't think it's as thin as the Koken, somewhere in the middle, but the lengths are much shorter. They're all like in the 10 to 12 range, so very, very nice to have the options there. With that said, somehow the battery has lasted. What a trooper. I think that's it. So we had some sort of research buys here. Finally landed the frickin' deeps. Super happy there. Again, the prices on the Koken sockets, I mean, full sets, standard Koken sockets, not like their Z stuff. Them and Proto, and Right to some extent, it's very difficult to find a better buy with a known quality. I've had Koken, obviously Proto, years of experience, but Koken, the time I've had it, especially since it's in the cart, it's seen a lot of use. I haven't seen any concerns. I'm very, very confident in them. I don't have the longevity, you know, first-hand feedback I do with the Protos, but it's hard to find a better buy for a quality socket than those two companies. That's why we have so many of them here. That's why I've got so much Proto at work, right? But I screwed that up. I'll try to figure it out. I'll hopefully be able to update you soon. I would love to get the kind of Roto, ironically, or they call it articulated in PB Swiss terms. I'd actually love to get that. It's a bit spendy. It would be cool though. The good news, if you're balling on a budget, you can jam that thing in there and call it good. You can also weld that somewhere if you're so inclined. Make sure you get it straight or it'll drive you nuts. We picked up another handle there, which we'll make do somehow. And yeah, that is it. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something, maybe got some ideas. If you use Koken breaker bars, what are your thoughts? What handle do you prefer? If you've got experience with Koken's handles, again, we've got Z series, we've got this grip, you got knurled, and you've got just traditional kind of teardrop curved metal, right? If you have experience with them all, which one do you like? Is it dependent on the application or the tool, what you're doing? Is it just a universal preference? If you don't have experience, speculate. What do you think you would like the most? With that said, LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. If you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do so. You jump your Charger across the creek, you wield your Koken half-inch breaker bar coupled with a PD Swiss articulated head. YouTube just might notify you we got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, thanks for watching. Hope I catch you back here next week.